So good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. It is Wednesday, February 4th, and it is 12 o'clock, and I am calling the Athens City Planning Commission meeting to order. The first order of business is establishing a quorum, and as I look to my left and my right, all committee members are present, and so we do have a quorum and can proceed with taking action today, if necessary. The next item on the agenda is the disposition of the minutes from February 4th. All commissioners, I believe, have those minutes at hand, and I look to either any comments concerning any corrections or additions, as well as look for a motion to accept these minutes.
I've
Yes.
sent one small correction
Okay.
for Elmwood
Okay.
to Monica, so she has that to correct.
Okay.
And I think there is one typo in the housing, the recovery housing. It just needs to say recover rather than, or recovery rather than recover on page 12. So those two corrections have been sent in.
Okay. Any other corrections or comments regarding the minutes? Hearing none, I'll entertain a motion.
I move to accept the minutes as amended.
Okay. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Second. And is there any other discussion regarding those? No? Hearing none. All in favor, say aye. 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 Any opposed? Any abstentions? Okay. They're approved. So I would ask that anybody who may choose to speak today raise their right hand and say "I do" after I ask them to raise your right hand, and I will ask you to tell me that you will. Any information that you provide this commission will be the truth to the best of your knowledge. Thank you. Okay. We have, I'll make sure. I believe we have no cases on the agenda for today. We have one communication to deal with, and it's a communication or information we received at the February 4th meeting regarding residential care facilities and recovery housing. We have draft language that we want to discuss today. So I'll open it to well, first of all, I guess I'll allow Ms. Rapp-Lee to recuse herself if she feels.
Yes, as per usual on this matter, I'll recuse myself, but thank you very much.
Thank you very much. So I'll open it up to any discussion here amongst, well, let me first turn it over to Mr. Riggs, who will maybe enlighten us on exactly what he's added to the to the code, what language changes he's added to the code.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, members of the committee. What I did was I took the recommendations of the discussions that we had at the last meeting, and I tried to turn that into a codified, to meet our codified ordinances. I actually modified Title 23 and I believe 29 as well to account for this. And the information in your packet, I've got some comments that are located, my comments, just kind of discussing some of the proposed changes that we've made. There are some decisions that we have to make. I mean, if you want to move forward on this, I could talk about the changes in the comments if you like, or if you could just discuss those. Either one's fine.
Well, why don't you go ahead and go over your comments?
So what I did was in Chapter 2304, permitted uses 2304.1, single-family residential zone, an R1 zone. We already had a residential care facility as number 6 of those principally permitted uses. I modified that a little bit and added a density control on those so that no residential care facility housing 5 or fewer residents can be closer than 1,000 feet from each other. Because it looks like recovery housing residents is also has also preempted us. We have that also located in an R1 zone, recovery housing residence housing no more than 3 unrelated. And this is really no different. We're going to treat these no different from other rental facilities. So you'll have no more than 3 unrelated per unit is what we already have for all of our rentals. We would just add recovery housing. We'd have them inspected. They'd have to get a permit, a rental permit, as well as a use permit for this type of use in an R1 zone. Then if you jump to 230403 multifamily R3 residential zone, I have in here for residential care facilities housing 6 to 16 residents, and then I added density controls to these. The 6 to 16 residents is part of the Ohio Department of Behavioral Health rules and regulations. So we can restrict those facilities housing 6 to 16, and we can put them in an R3 as a conditionally permitted use. And then the recovery housing, we want treating them similar, housing 4 more unrelated residents. They'd have to have a valid permit from the Ohio Department of Behavioral Health and from the Ohio Department of Commerce Building Department for a certificate of occupancy. And then we have density restrictions on those located in an R3. No, either one of those must be at least 1,000 feet from another similar residential facility. So we made the change in the R3. Because of the way our zoning is set up, we also need to look at these in the business district. So they would not be allowed in a B1, but then you jump to a B2 and a B3 zone, then we do allow these residential care facilities and recovery housing residents, same as an R3, at least 1,000 feet density controls, and then 4 more for the recovery housing residents.
Quick question on that. I'm sorry. Mr. Chair, before you continue, just a reminder on B2 and B3, that first floor residential prohibition still applies. So the use could be permitted, but you can't use first floor. Is that in the B2 and B3? Or would we treat this differently? Because I mean, I know for, like, say for instance, a hotel in a B2 or B3, technically people are living on the first floor, but in this, but they're not really living there because it's a hotel, right? And it's a business in that regard.
So for the residential care facilities, we would, the way it's set up right now, they'd be allowed to use the first
on
floor.
the first floor.
Yeah,
Okay,
because
so
we're not considering these a residence. They're a business use basically
for the care facilities.
For the care facilities. So if we want to change the language, you want to do it, here if you don't want them on the first floor, because the way it reads right now, they would be allowed on the first floor.
For the care facilities. But
I think for both, yeah.
I think we need to think about that, just as we're going forward, just because, are they a residence or are they a business? And I think a residence, you wouldn't permit first floor residential in a B zone. Not to say that it's going to happen that frequently, but I think it's something that we would want to specify if we need to, or at least know how we're going to treat it.
Yeah, I guess I don't understand why we would change that requirement. Why we would not require them to be above the first floor. Exactly. I understand the kind of the analogy that it is a business, but it's still a residential facility.
So would you want that both for the residential care facilities and the recovery housing facilities, the second floor and above?
That would be my opinion.
Okay.
And that's the way I thought I read it. I didn't realize we had changed that when I reviewed the initial comments.
But we want to make it clear, so
Yes.
I can adjust that to make that clear.
I mean, is everybody, what's the pleasure of the,
I'm just thinking about, say, for instance, like a couple of the facilities across the street from the fairgrounds. I think that's a B3 out there, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
That's a B3, and those are on the first floor, right? And they're caring for people on the first floor in that space, like at the hospital, at the mental health institution that's out there. Those are obviously different types of uses. But then there's a couple places that are right there up against Union Street, and they're care facilities, and people are being cared for on the first floor. So I guess that would be an example of would that be permissible, or would that be something we'd want or not?
I could see it if it were in now, what zone is that in over there?
B3.
So I could see it in a business zone better than I could see it in a residential zone.
Right. I agree,
Okay.
Mr. Chair.
Okay.
My question, though, specific to this, is we're talking about these uses being allowed in a B zone, but we typically prohibit residential on the first floor.
Okay.
So I think that that's just something to clarify, and maybe that's an interpretation thing. Maybe we don't have to specify them.
I guess I was more concerned about allowing it on the first floor in residential zones. Personally, that was more of an issue for me
Right.
than in a business zone, but.
I mean, go ahead. I'm sorry.
So, number one, do we allow it in a R1? Do we allow on first floor? We would,
I
we
mean,
could.
people are allowed to live on their first floor.
It is a residence.
It is
I
a
guess,
residence.
yeah.
But for business, no. I'd rather settle it now, would be my
Yeah.
opinion, because you'll have all kinds of
Sure.
qualifiers and people needing to be grandfathered in. But but it is a business.
On an R3
In a-
though, do we allow it in an R3?
Residential on the first floor?
Yeah.
Yes.
Oh, we do. And would these be allowed in an R2?
Yes.
Yes.
And do we allow it on R2 residence on the first floor?
Yes.
Okay, well then, okay, I'm confused here a little bit. I've confused myself, actually. Okay.
I shouldn't have brought it up, sorry.
No, I think it's important to talk about that
So
and
the other
make sure
thing
we
we
know.
could do
Yeah.
is you could split the difference here and have a residential care facility housing 6 to 16 residents, allow those on the first floor in a business zone. The recovery housing residents, allow them only on the second floor and above.
Mr. Chair, I would
split
think that would be appropriate because, you're basically looking at that care facility as a business use, whereas the recovery house is a residential use. And all other residential uses in our B2s and B3s, we say you can't have residential use on the first floor. So I think that would be appropriate, what he just said.
Yes.
Just to add to this with the B zone conversation, I think we would really be negatively impacting anyone who wants to do this in a B3 because of ADA requirements. I mean, if that facility doesn't have an elevator and you're restricting from ground floor, then it flies in the face of any progress of developing something like this, where those ground units could be hopefully completely ADA accessible, without having to put the burden of adding an elevator or something else to that facility.
So we're saying that in the B zones, we will permit the residential care facilities, but on the first floor. But the residential recovery housing would not be permitted in the B zone.
On the first floor.
On the first floor.
Because it's a
yes.
residential use.
Correct, yes, okay.
So I'd reword the 230405A9, recovery housing residents, housing 4 or more unrelated residents on the second floor and above with a valid rental permit and periodic rental inspections.
Similar to what A1 reads, I would think.
Okay.
Okay,
All right.
okay, thank you.
So I also wanted to look at the number of parking or the amount of parking required for these types of facilities. We did actually add, let me do the definitions. We did definitions for recovery housing residents and residential care facilities in the definitions section of 23, Title 23. I believe that the residential care facility exactly matches the Ohio Revised Code or Department of Behavioral Health's definition, while the recovery housing residence, we kind of made a little tweaks. It still matches the intent of that definition, I believe, though. We also looked at the table of bulk controls to look at parking. So recovery housing residence is the minimum required is 1 space per bed for recovery housing residents, but understand that we do have an exemption from these regulations. If you're within 1,500 feet of public transportation, which most of these facilities probably would be, you cut that in half. So you would have 1 parking space per 2 beds in that case because of that. And then residential care facility, 1 space per 3,000 square foot floor area, similar to what we have in the other sections of the bulk controls. Again, that could be cut in half. The requirements could be cut in half if they're within 1,500 feet of public transportation. And then on Chapter 29, Title 29, we added recovery housing residents to rental dwellings, short-term rentals, and housing permits. We think this fits best in this section, and we would treat recovery housing residents as we do any other rental in the city. So they would have to, rental permit would be required. They have to apply. They'd have to be inspected, just as we do all of our rental permits for short-term rentals, rental dwellings, and housing rentals.
It's really health and safety.
So one comment I have is, so in with regard to the recovery facilities, we're allowing 3 unrelated people, with the exception, I guess in R3 we can have, R3 in the business we can have 4 unrelated people.
4 more, they'd have to get this would be like a rooming house. We would treat it the same. For the rooming house, you have to have a occupancy permit, and you have to get some other. Typically, those facilities will need to be sprinkled.
Okay.
So they're a little bit different. Those are also conditionally permitted in a R3. So they would have to go to the Board of Zoning Appeals to get approval.
Well, the one thing that I recall, and maybe I don't recall it correctly, but I thought the state law permitted in these type facilities up to 5 unrelated people. How does that fit with this?
So we talked about breaking that down into 2 subsections. That's the way I had originally sent it to you, and we revised that. So you could do that. It makes more sense, I believe, for us, and it's a better stance for us to have to treat these like we do the other rental permits for short-term rentals, for long-term rentals, for rental rooming houses. If we treat those the same rather than try to separate those out, I think that we have a better stand to get these, to make sure we can enforce this kind of zoning.
And Mr. Chair,
Yes.
We've spent a lot of time in the ORC between the 2 different sections of 5119.3.4, which talks about the care facilities, and 5119.3.9, which talks about recovery houses. And the preemption in the Ohio Revised Code that we were talking about before is specific to communities zoning out care facilities. Those health care facilities, basically, from their R1 zones, and that's where that limit of 5 is put in place. That preemption does not exist for recovery houses, and so when we talked about this, we said, we really, we can't overly constrain these. We can create conditions such that they are they're treated similarly to the other parts of other uses in the city. We can put permit requirements on it just for life safety, like we do for rentals, and that's what we did. But we said, we treat rentals in R1s for 3 or more, so we would treat these in R1s as 3. I'm sorry, 3 or less unrelated people. So it would be the same, basically.
Yes.
I have one question about a comment. It's on page 12 of 20 of the PDF file, and I think it's 2 of 30 in our packet that talks about personal services. Do we need to resolve that now? You had noted that ours doesn't match the Ohio Revised Code.
I believe our definition is a general summary of what is provided in the ORC. I can read out the ORC's language if you would like to compare the two. That would be helpful.
It's
Believe it or
up to you.
not, it's up to you.
I mean, yeah,
We're
we just,
relying on your judgment on
Right.
it. When you called it, when you
think it's
flagged
germane
it,
to this
and said you
discussion,
didn't
though.
agree, I thought, if we're making
Yeah,
changes, I think
that's
it
where
would
they're
be
coming.
important to try and, so we are in sync with Ohio Revised Code.
So what I hadn't noted our specific definition. I had just included the ORC's definition of those uses in kind of like my notes that I sent to code for consideration.
Okay,
So I hadn't called this definition out as an issue.
okay.
Yeah.
Thanks.
anything else?
I think the other thing is that we probably ought to talk about or have a discussion about is the density restrictions that we're talking about, because I think it matters, right? And so what we talked about is no more than 1,000 feet, or no less than 1,000 feet from one another. So for both of these types of uses, these newly defined uses, the updated definition of residential care facility, and then the newly defined use of recovery house. And when we iterated on this, we kind of said, what's too close, what's too far? If you overly constrain them, you're creating a situation where you're apt to be challenged. And we have done some density restrictions with other uses around the city. Specifically, I think most recently with tobacco and cannabis sales locations. And in those instances, rather than distance from one another, we looked at quantity per specific B zone. So we said, 4 in this B3 zone, 5 in this B3 zone, and that was kind of how we did it. And then we stuck a distance restriction from playground, churches, schools. Now, in this case, we're talking about from one another. And we went back and forth about what's appropriate to do, because, if you're overly restrictive, you're singling them out, and I think you're at risk of a discriminatory practice, which we don't want to do. But at the same time, I think it's an important discussion for the public and for us to say, there's only a limited number of houses in the city, and what's an appropriate density to have for all the various uses that we have. So I think, I don't know if it's worth talking about here, but we landed on 1,000 feet. I don't know if there's thoughts from the commission that it's more or less or what's appropriate.
So for the general public, 1,000 feet is approximately what distance? Is it a city block?
I don't know, what would you say?
2.5 blocks.
Yeah, about
2.5 blocks, okay.
If you figure the frontage of a normal in-city lot is probably 40 feet, 40 to, is that what many of our city,
It used to be 60, we reduced it.
well, but a lot of the older ones, though.
40, yeah.
40 feet is pretty common for, at least in the near-in neighborhoods, frontage is 40 feet, so if you can imagine that in your head. You're looking at 2.5 blocks and that.
As I read these, I wasn't uncomfortable with 1,000 feet. But I don't know what do the other commission members think? Anybody else have any thoughts about that?
I'm not uncomfortable with it either.
Yeah.
I mean, it's what's been set for the other business
Right.
instance.
So I guess what we're saying is right now, that's a good starting point. We can get potentially, and I'm going to ask that we vote on making sure that we have, before we vote on these changes and additions to, and prepare to forward it to council, I'm going to ask that we formally ask the law director to look at these and make sure that she's comfortable with it. She conceivably could say something about the distance as well as she looks at that.
Sure.
Another thing that, So this morning, we received a letter from an attorney who represents the woman who lives at 53 Madison. And one of the points that was made in the letter is that the resident at 53 had a difficult time getting to her property because of vehicles in the driveway, in the common driveway. So one, I have a concern about these facilities being in a residential district with a common driveway, and I don't know if we need to do something with that or can. But more important, the fact is, I thought that we had talked that the residents didn't have cars at these recovery facilities, but rather they used a van to transport them to where they go during the day and move them. So my initial thought was, well, if they only have one vehicle up there, there should not be a problem with people getting to, on a common driveway, getting to their property. But if they, if it isn't, if there isn't supervision all the time there and people come, I guess friends could come, I guess, and visit them or something. I mean, I don't know, is there an, I guess my main question is how recovery housing facilities and the residential care facilities, do they have full-time people at the facilities? And are they required to?
I don't know that Mr. Chair, could answer that. And I know that as we've looked at the state definitions for both of these and the state requirements, so the state requirements require a certification process of recovery houses and a licensing process of care facilities. And, from whether, presumptively, the care facilities would be more likely to have, a staff member present. And my guess would be to what level of care, probably. But I don't know that that's in local, in the local purview, really. I do think parking is, because that's certainly something that we do for rentals, and we say, you got to have this many parking spaces.
And we've
Yeah.
defined that in our
Right.
regulation.
Right.
Well, I'm just concerned about common driveways, and I don't know how many we have in our community where they have common driveways, but that is something that kind of is a concern that I had as I continued to ponder this whole thing.
Sure. I don't know. Any thoughts on it?
We certainly have them, but there's not that many shared drives in the city of Athens. And,
Particularly in the R1 areas.
Yeah, it's typically something on someone's deed where, two parcels may be subdivided and they had a drive that served, they had one drive and they subdivided the parcel and then they wrote into the deed, each parcel will be served by this driveway, and then it's incumbent upon the property owners to work out, between the two of them to make sure each had access. I don't know if you've seen other instances.
Yeah, we do have several of them in the city. If we did want to talk about that, I'd almost consider that a separate subject on, well, what do you do with shared drives and how do you manage those? Because they do become issues occasionally. We don't have a lot of control in our code right now of preventing them. They end up, that would come from our lot split Title 21, minor subdivisions, and we haven't always looked at those when we've approved the lot splits before. So maybe we could address that as part of Title 21 code change, and not specific to these recovery housings.
I know you almost would have to do a review of the deed to ensure that there's some sort of mutual arrangement baked into the deed when the lot split occurs. How you deal with ones that already exist, because you have to have a triggering mechanism to cause you to look at them, and that lot split is typically the triggering mechanism.
Yeah.
I don't know how you do that.
Yeah. Commissioners, anything else? So I would like to ask is if there's anybody here from Next Level, and if they would like to say something regarding these discussions that we're having before I open it up to everybody else. So would you like to speak? So I would ask that you raise your right hand and basically confirm that everything you will present to this commission will be true and accurate to the best of your knowledge. Thank you. And so if you'd step up there and give your name and address, and
Yes.
I guess business as well, I'd
Yes,
appreciate it.
my name is Joy Jones. My address, my home address or business address?
Business address is fine.
11100 State Route 550, Athens, Ohio 45071.
Okay.
Yes, I'm a little nervous. So I was listening to you guys talking about the house. Some of these guys here are were the residents at 51 Madison. So I brought them in to share with you guys what really goes on because we were short-staffed and some of the information that you guys got was not all correct. We did try to reach out to the neighbor when we first got there because we have a good neighbor policy. I wasn't aware that we weren't supposed to be there because the landlord, everyone that, when we came down there, knew what we were going to do, and it seemed to be no problem. I've been in Athens for almost 2 years as far as the behavioral health. We just opened the houses up three months ago, one 4 months ago, one almost 3 months ago. And we bring clients in from all over Ohio that need help. And we specialize in couples. So we decided to get couples because we were doing single individuals, and they were always relapsing, going back to their using partner. So I came up with an idea of healing the house instead of the individual. So now we bring couples in, and the relapse has decreased. So they stay longer, they're more engaged. We have a good neighbor policy. The guy over here shaking his head, he helps the neighbors. He's from Lorraine. They are the senior residents there. So when something goes on, they report to this lady here. And I will, if you want, let them come up. You can let them come up and share their story and how Next Level Behavioral Health and how Next Level, the House of Opportunity, has helped them. So when it comes to the houses, when I came down here, I was just, so much was going on because my son was murdered and I'm trying to run a business and I completely forgot to register the houses. And as soon as you guys came, I went down and I registered houses. I moved them all out of the houses. The houses are still there until we get all of the compliance that you guys asked of us. I want to be compliant. I'm not here for the money. I don't charge them anything. I help them. I come out of my pocket. I became Dr. Joy not because I went to school, because I was honored. I have an honorary doctorate because of the work that I do in the community in Columbus, Ohio. When I met Capstone, I shared with them what I was going to do, and they gave me the building. So I felt like it was all a blessing. After being there a while, we started helping clients. We overflowed in Columbus. So I had these houses. I said, let me send these people here. And they came here and they changed their lives around. Whatever it is you guys want me to do, I'm willing to do it. If you want me to move out, I don't know if I had the capacity to fight, but I want to do the best I can to continue my mission and to help these clients.
Okay.
And if you have any questions for me, I'm willing to answer them.
Thank you.
Yes.
Does anybody have a question for her at this point? My question is, what's the pleasure? Would you like to hear from a supervisor, I guess, and maybe a resident, or what would you like to do? I personally would think there's some value in that.
I think so. I would
Okay.
like to.
Okay. I'm going to have a seat and
Okay.
have you run. Thank you.
Okay, yeah. So let me ask each of you who are going to speak here to raise your right hand and confirm that everything you will say here and communicate to the commission will be accurate and true to the best of your knowledge.
I do.
Okay. So state your name and your address as well. For the
My
record.
name is Sophia Hancock. I am, my address here, or
Yes.
what address?
11100.
What'd you say?
11100 State Route 550.
1100 State Route
Okay,
550.
so you're out
right.
at the 550
Okay.
facility, okay.
My name is Sophia Hancock. I am the Director of Housing. So our mission is we just want to help people. We're not here for a page. I'm not here for a paycheck. I enjoy helping them, and to see them grow from coming in off the streets and actually being able to become who they can become to the best of their abilities without, the struggles of homelessness, addiction, just not knowing their life skills that could be taught to them. It is very powerful to see them start with nothing and become so just amazing people that they have the ability to do. So my position that I hold here, if there's any issues in the houses, they report them to me and I address them and fix them the proper way. That way they're not on their own. They're not just thrown into the wolves, A lot of them have had struggles, but they completely turned their lives around, and I'm very proud of them. If you guys have any questions
How
for
many,
me.
how many houses do you manage here in our community?
And in your guys' community too.
2, okay. And how often do you visit those facilities?
So before they got brought back, it was daily.
You're there daily?
Yes.
And then as needed beyond that?
Yes, if an emergency would come through.
Anybody have any other questions for her? Thank you very much.
Of course.
And so I think at this point, what we'll do is just, one couple would be, give us a good sense of things. I don't want to disrespect anybody and say you can't speak, and I'm welcome to if you really feel you want to, but I think we just want to get a sense of, how this program is helping you people. Okay.
Hello. My name's Casey. This is my fiance, Nate.
Nathan, nice to meet you guys. Thank
We
you for the
just-
opportunity.
Yes, we just wanted to be able to let you know that where we came from was horrible. We were in a horrible program in Dayton that was all about fraud and money. It got shut down and it caused us to be homeless. So we're originally from Youngstown, and so our journey started last December, our sobriety journey, and landed us here in Columbus. And Dr. Joy, Sophia, Lynn, everybody has been amazing. They have helped us change our life tremendously. I'm 44 years old. I've been to a couple other programs. This is the best one I've been to. This is the first week we were there. I had Dr. Joy come up to me every single day and be like, "Do you like your house? Do you need anything?" Like, she just wants to help. Her heart is huge. And we know it's not about the money, because the place we were at before was about money and stuff. But if it wasn't for Next Level, I don't know where we would be. They've helped me get my license. They've helped me with my birth certificate, social security card, just changed my life completely. And I'm beyond grateful. So being away from Youngstown is big for us. And being out here in Athens, we love it. We absolutely love it here. It's quiet. It's calm. And we really, truly try and, being the senior parents in our house, we have these beautiful houses, furnished. Beyond grateful for the amazingness of these homes and not being homeless. But, yeah, go ahead. It's just, it saved my life.
Yeah, that's why I see me over here tearing up the whole time. It was devastating to hear that we had to move out the other day, because I've fallen in love with Athens, and like she said, we've been in other treatment centers and it just hasn't worked. I don't know, and I believe it comes down to the love in this program that I haven't felt in a long time. So I was happy to come here and really speak how much this program saved my life. It's incredible, the whole ride up here. I just was just counting my blessings, and I'm hoping that God's will let us come back and be a great part of the community. When we had that snowstorm, a resident with me, we went out and shoveled driveways. I don't know how many we shoveled, and we were doing it for free. And of course, some people would help out, but we were just offering, to help the more elder community members, you know, when they were stuck in. And then when the plow would come by, they couldn't get out of their driveway, so I was going and shoveling them out of their driveway. Because that's part of our good neighbor policy. You know, you see anybody struggling or just, you know, somebody needs groceries carried in, you know, that's where we're at. So, like I said, I appreciate your time, guys. Thank you.
Thank you for listening. We
Do you have any
appreciate it.
questions? Sorry.
Did you?
No, okay, thank you
No? Okay.
thank you very much. Okay. Okay. So, I think the next step would be to open it up to other comments from folks. You know, and what we're trying to focus on is the legislation changes that we're planning to make here. So, you know, so is there other people who would like to speak here regarding the discussions for the changes we've made? And you're welcome to stay as long as you want, I guess, but, or if you need to go, you can, whatever. Okay, so name and address once again, Mr. Stoffer.
Jack Stoffer, Elmwood. I think anything that we do, we need to keep in mind community need. Somewhere in these documents that I've read with behavioral health and or the recovery, they address community need. We have folks in our community providing services for our community, and we haven't had any problems that I've become aware of in regards to community need. I've jotted down a few notes here, and this is not going to be organized. I'm going to jump around from topic to topic, but all things that I think need to be touched on here, and a couple opinions or things I think you need to take under consideration. I know you want something that will stand up in court, but remember, landlords in this town could also sue, existing landlords, student landlords, any landlord, could also sue if you allow this type of business, or whatever the proper term might be to refer to them as, in our zones. I'm specifically mostly concerned with R1. Things that I think that you could need to consider are the lot sizes. If you've got a neighborhood that has small lots, the houses are very close together. I know I know this on my street. I know it a lot on the Near East side and on the west side. There's a lot of small lots in town. If you got small lots, the houses are real close together. I think there needs to be a minimum distance between the physical houses, and I think there needs to be a physical size noted that these wouldn't be allowed on any lot that wasn't of a certain size and a certain distance from the property line and a certain distance between the physical houses. And as far as the shared driveway goes, on my street, there are several shared driveways. Now, I don't know how many shared driveways there are in town. It doesn't matter how many shared driveways there are in town. If you're the guy with the shared driveway, it's a big problem. That's already been demonstrated at 53. Now, I heard what everybody said. Now, I'm not here to disrespect anybody. I'm here to stand up for the residents of Athens, Ohio. And when these folks, or whoever was in there, was moving out at 53 Madison, or 51 Madison, their vehicle became stuck in their own driveway. So I don't know how many driveways they shoveled. I'm not here to say they didn't shovel any driveways. I'm here to say they got stuck and hung up in their own driveway when they were trying to make the exit up there. Now, in regards to how far density, how far these could be apart, you suggested 1,000 feet as far as how far these businesses or recovery homes or whatever the proper term is can be apart. I'm looking out for Athens, Ohio. I'm looking out for the residents of Athens, Ohio. If the state law, this is probably a Lisa question, maybe Mr. Riggs knows the answer, or maybe Mr. Stone knows the answer. If the state law doesn't say what the number of feet of distance in between these recovery houses is, in other words, if it's not written out in the state law that you can't go over 1,000 feet, then my suggestion is you do go over 1,000 feet and you make them as far apart as possible, and you also say there can't be any, and they can still, no matter to that, they have to be so far apart and or from precinct to precinct. We can't have our town overwhelmed or jammed up, and the shared driveway thing is a big thing. Small lots, houses close together, I think these things need to be considered. Now, these folks already said they're in love with Athens, and I understand why, because it's a great town. I'm in love with it too, and that's the reason I'm standing here today. But we all know that the national rate is more or less 70% for recidivism or whatever, people failing to recover. So, recovery houses are in our town. There's a 70% failure rate. The people love our town. That means people will possibly remain in our town, be going to our food banks, be going to our churches, be going to these places that provide meals for the folks in our community. And I'm focusing on our community. I would like for any of these to be, I would suggest that you consider these needing a variance or a, whatever the proper term is, to not be a permitted use, but a conditionally permitted use, I think you might say. I just don't want Athens to be the dumping ground for Ohio. We've already had a taste of what this can do and make it problematic for us, our citizens. I think there needs to be a distance, since the folks that are the customers, the residents, the clients, there needs to be a distance from bars. There needs to be a distance from carryouts. There needs to be a distance from dispensaries. There needs to be a distance from churches. We need, you can't let them have less parking than you can let the regular landlords have, or else that opens up another can of worms. I think you should require, or consider requiring, depending on what Lisa says, on-site supervision. I think anybody that comes to town should have residents, clients, that have had a background check. We've already found out that this outfit clearly doesn't do background checks, because when we had an event, we had a convicted felon. That's one thing, but with an outstanding warrant, that's another thing. Thank you.
Thank you, Jack. Anybody else?
Nice to be on this side of the podium for a while after that 4-hour meeting last night. Alan Swank, Athens City Council, 4th Ward, live over on the Far East Side. Been in Athens since 1979. John, on the distance thing, 1,000 feet. It's the same distance as number 2 on the OU golf course if you're playing from the members' tees. So that gives you a little perspective of how we're talking, or what we're talking about. First question is to Director Riggs. The unrelated residence definition that we have in Athens, where a couple is counted as one, is that a local thing or is that a state thing?
That's local.
That's local.
It's been on the books for a long time.
Yeah, can you give the Cliff Notes version as the background and that why we do it that way?
I don't know the answer to that, sir.
Okay, the reason I ask, because when we talk about three unrelated people, and particularly student rentals is 3 people, but when we talk about 3 unrelated people in this situation, it can be as many as 6 people. So there's a big difference between three and 6. Sophia, the house manager, I'd like to ask you a question. When there were several incidents over the last 3 or 4 months where the police were called out, were you contacted about that?
I was.
Okay, good. I just want to make sure that communication was taking place. And when something like that happens, you, I assume, go down to the house and monitor and all of that kind of stuff?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so my comments really are about 230401, number 7. One of the things that we have in here is the proof of, let me read this, this is small, proof of certification ongoing or actively pursuing certification through the State of Ohio Department of Behavioral Health. That second part seems wide open. As we all know, the higher one moves up in the chain of government, the slower things move. So, this could be months, it could be, a year. Would you consider, or is there any state law that would prevent removing or actively pursuing certification through the State of Ohio Department of Behavioral Health? Personally, I'd be a little bit more comfortable if the certificate was in place as before the clients moved into the place, rather than, well, we're going to get it, and then we're dependent upon a third party in Columbus to process it, maybe in a timely manner and maybe not. So something for you to consider. 1,000 feet we already talked about. I guess what I'd like to say is we're talking about 2 groups of people here. Mr. Stauffer referred to the citizens of Athens. We're talking about 2 groups of people here. We're talking about the people who live in Athens on a permanent basis and the people who have come here in a program that sounds fairly decent to work their way through recovery. I had a family member who refused to go into recovery but was an addict and died because they did not get the proper care. So when we talk about these 2 groups of people, I would place the needs of those who've chosen to enter recovery at position 1, and those who are not in or do not need a recovery program as 1A. But they both need to work together. So I'm encouraging this body to review this very, very carefully as to what makes sense for the community of Athens, for those who are in recovery and need those services, and the people who have chosen to make this their permanent home, and in many cases invested a lot of money. As a house just got built and put up for sale on the Near East Side, and the asking price is $750,000, $750,000. And I can understand when someone has invested that kind of money or their life in improving a property, the desire to retain that value. And the fear of the unknown is very powerful, as we saw last night. But we also had something on our refrigerator for many, many years, a little magnet that said, people spend 90% of the things that people are concerned about happening never happen. So I guess what I'm saying is I'd like to make this as tight as possible. The regulations are being followed so that the people who live here permanently can feel that their investment in their property and their neighborhood is protected. But equally important, or maybe even a step above, that those who have chosen the path to recovery can continue down that path and not be part of that 70%, but be part of that 30% that makes it to the end of the line. Thank you.
Anybody else? Please come to the podium and name and address, please.
I'm Ann Rubin. I live at 88 Maplewood Drive in Athens. I will say on the question about shared driveways, I live on a block on Maplewood Drive where there are a number of shared driveways, not my lot, but across the street. there up and down my block, I know there's a lot of shared driveways, not as long as the one from 51 and 53. But there are actually a lot of shared driveways on the east side of Athens. Okay, I had questions actually when I was looking at the draft, and I thought maybe you could help me understand what you're proposing. I noticed that, so in 23.04.01, 7, little a, you're including recovery housing as a primary use, not as a accessory use, which is what rentals are generally. Why is that?
I think that's true.
I mean, what's the thinking behind that?
I don't think that's true.
Mr. Riggs, can you speak to that?
So so we're really talking about two different, let me start here. We're talking about two different draft ordinance changes. It sounds like she has, where I had Part A and Part B in there, we've removed that and changed that, and that's what you have before the commission right now. So if you go to 230401 A7, it just says recovery housing residence housing no more than 3 unrelated. We wanted to put that in. There's always this question, right? Is a rental unit a residential use or a business use, right? And so if you treat it as a business use because it's income derived, people are making money off of rentals, so it's income derived. Then you have, and you consider it a commercial use, then you have residents who are like, well, I'm not a resident, I'm a commercial, I'm part of a commercial use. So it's an odd switch to look at what are we doing? Are we treating these rentals as residential, or are we treating them as business operations? So what I tried to do here was I tried to, with a recovering housing residence, I tried to make that match what we're doing with the other rental uses, and not try to define it either as a commercial use or a residential use. So I have it in here, but I'm not trying to say whether it's a residential or commercial, because there are commercial uses that are allowed in an R1. It's not just for residential uses.
They're allowed as accessory uses.
No, they're not.
Home businesses and whatnot are listed when I'm looking at this
So
definition of R1.
institutional and cultural, that's not an accessory use, that's a
right,
primary use.
right.
This would be the same thing, it's a primary use, not an accessory use. Because for an accessory use, you have to have a primary use. You can't just have an accessory use.
What is then, am I not understanding what B5 is? Long-term rentals? B5 is listed as a permitted accessory use, long-term rentals. And you're saying it's the same thing. That's what I'm just trying to understand.
More than 2 renters, I think that's a short-term rental.
Okay, so this would be for non-resident owners, right?
Yeah, this is like the standard, isn't that like the general business in Athens, like renting out to 3 unrelated
yeah.
people,
Yeah.
subject to Title 29? I think that's what you're talking about. You're trying to make 7 equivalent to, but you have them in different, you're actually treating them a little differently in the ordinance.
Sure.
And I just wondered
Yeah,
what the
because the
thinking
state-
was about it.
The state treats them differently. The state has requirements for recovering housing residents that the short-term rentals do not.
Long-term rentals.
Or short-term, long-term,
B5 is
yeah.
a long-term rental provision.
Yeah.
So I'm just trying to, if you're trying to make them the same, I didn't understand why you have one as a primary use, one as an accessory use.
Yeah, because
I'm
like I
just
said,
asking, I don't know.
The state actually has additional regulations for these types of units that they don't have for rental units.
For recovery housing.
Recovering housing does have additional requirements.
Well, that sort of does, lead me to another question, which was this, and maybe I have the wrong document. I have the document that was posted yesterday, so on the website for the Planning Commission. So that was what was available to me as a member of the public. Housing, so you have recovery housing residents, and if it's no more than 3 unrelated people with a valid permit, it doesn't say certification is required?
Yes, it does. That's the way, that's what.
Is that one of the changes?
Yes,
Okay.
yes.
So in any instance, certification would be required if it's recovery housing?
Yes, as
Okay.
required by the state of Ohio.
So we're not talking about the city allowing recovery housing that's not complying with 5119.392, which is the requirement that they be certified or accredited.
Right.
Okay, okay. Then I was,
Well, I think if you have a number of questions, you should make an appointment and speak directly with Mr. Riggs in his office about
oh,
this.
sure.
rather
Well,
than-
there are questions
Okay.
for you too. I
Okay.
won't, okay, I just wanted to understand what I was looking at. And this one I'll address to Mr. Riggs separately, but I did want to know what evidence of local need you had apart in considering this issue about amending the ordinances. Was there any evidence that you looked at demonstrating local needs, such as a needs assessment or other evidence you were considering about unmet local needs? And that's really addressed to you all as the commission.
Well, I think we're recognizing that these recovery homes are a growing area in our community as well as other communities. And so I think what we are trying to do is make sure that we look out for our community and try to incorporate them in with regulations and requirements. And I think that's, and I don't know, maybe somebody can articulate that a little better here, but that's what, this is all about a growing need and wanting to, I think we had a discussion not long ago that this community has a lot of rental properties and a lot of people who come in and are here for a period of time and leave. And then we have our permanent residents. And what we're trying to do is mesh the two together and make sure that we have some controls and can respect the needs of our community members, our permanent community members.
Okay, so I'm taking it that from your answer there that this was an unforeseen need at the time the Athens Comprehensive Plan on Housing was being written, maybe? You have a comprehensive plan?
Because I wasn't a part of that
Okay.
comprehensive plan, so I don't know. But,
Okay.
it to me, it's like marijuana dispensaries. It's something that's, has, surfaced that we have those in our community now, and what we're trying to do is look out for our community.
Okay, okay.
Mr. Chair, I would say if you've got suggestions on a guidance document and a study that would be informative to the Planning Commission, we would love to review it.
Okay, thank you. I can meet with Mr. Riggs to ask some of my other questions, I think, but as a member of the public and looking for a public answer, I had put the questions together. I guess my last question would be whether this commission has had any communication with the Affordable Housing Commission on amending the ordinances pertaining to recovery housing, if there's been any discussion between the two groups.
I personally haven't been a part of those discussions, but other staff people and members here may have, or I don't know.
Okay.
No, but to your point, one of the missions of the Affordable Housing Commission, among other things, is the fact that, like, every other municipality in the United States right now is lacking in affordable, or houses that are affordable. I prefer not saying affordable housing because that has so many different meanings all across the United States right now. But, houses that are affordable, is again, that's part of the narrative as we're looking at this and thinking about this, because we're talking about R1 neighborhoods. And the fact that in my 18 years of being a professor at Ohio University and having the dubious responsibility during faculty searches to drive people around to show them where they could live in R1 neighborhoods, where they could live anywhere in the city of Athens, and getting the same question every time in return, that's great. Where are the for sale signs? Where are the houses that are for sale in our community? And, you know, we experience that to this very day, to where we do not have enough housing stock. And I believe that we need to really be diligent in preserving houses that people can buy and invest and earn wealth in, but also to attract people who are part of our economic development for the city of Athens, which includes Ohio University. It includes everybody at the end of the day.
Right. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Real quick, Mr. Kowski, did you get the email that I sent yesterday?
Yes.
Okay.
And I forwarded it. I'm sorry I didn't copy you on the forward, but I did forward it to
I
everybody
just
here.
buried in the papers. I forgot to ask earlier.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions or comments from people? Again? Okay, real quick.
I need a point of clarification if it's been cleared up yet. Ann touched on this, and I think you guys talked about it earlier. So one thing I want to make clear, Paul back here filed the complaint, and the information that he got when he filed the complaint was that this outfit was not only not registered in the state of Ohio, they hadn't even applied to be down here in Athens, and they just appeared, and as of the date when he spoke with a lady by the name of Sophie Laurie, I believe her name was, they hadn't even applied, let alone been granted the license. And I would like clarification on what Ann touched on and maybe what one of you spoke about earlier. When you say certification or fully licensed by the state, does that mean to me or to Athens or to this community that this 18-month on-ramp, or however you want to say it, that you can come on into town and 18 months later you better be certified or we're going to do something about it? Fully certified, you would think the logical thing to do would be to ask anybody coming into town to set up business that they had their license in effect. Just like opening a bar. You don't open a bar and say, I've applied for my license, I'll get back with you when I get it, I'll bring you a copy. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about, are they going to be certified? Have they cleared all the hurdles? Do we know they can perform what they're going to try to perform? And I wish all these folks and everybody that's trying to recover, I wish them success. That's not the point. The point is protecting our community for our community. Thank you.
So, okay, well, that's fine. I believe they are certified, correct, with the state of Ohio. And part of the issue is making sure that we're aware that they're in the community and that they have gone through appropriate processes to use a facility here in Athens City.
Mr. Chair.
Yes.
I'll start with my understanding of the process, and then I'll let David weigh in again, and then if there's anybody else that has knowledge of it. So residential care facilities have a licensing process. So when we talk about residential care facilities, that's a licensing process that the state licenses those. Recovery homes have a certification process where you register and then you spend 18 months getting certified. And presumably they can't certify you if they can't observe you operating. And so that's where that 18-month period comes from. Did I say that correctly, David, when we look at the two different portions of
That's correct.
5119?
So ORC 5119.392, that's the one that states the 18 months. So they can operate for 18 months while they're actively pursuing their certification of that facility, of that house.
After they've registered. They
They
register.
have 30 days to register the house.
Correct.
So they can operate the house. This is state law, ORC 5119.391 says that they can operate the house for 30 days before they register. They have 30 days after they start operating to register the house. And then they have to be certified within that 18 months. They also have to be, the other piece to this, before they can do any of this, they have to be a certified provider, which is something different. So the people that are operating that facility have to be certified with the Ohio Department of Behavioral Health. And that's a separate certification. That's a certification for the services they're providing.
Dr. Joy, do you want to say anything about this? Sure, please do.
So the first thing I want to clear up is we are certified through the state of Ohio. OMAS, Ohio Mental Health and Addiction Service, already came out and approved the location at State Route 550. We are in the process of being joint accredited. They come out on March 1st. We are in the process of we moved all the people out of the houses because we were short-staffed. They are back in Columbus. We didn't just bring them to Athens for whatever reason. We had people that needed help. We had houses here that were vacant and they needed to be used. So anybody, if they come from Logan, Marion, wherever in Ohio, and they call Next Level for help and we have a bed available, we go through the intake process and we will bring them in, whether it's Columbus or wherever. Unfortunately, we haven't been able to build our relationships with Athens as we would like to because I'm extremely busy trying to put everything together. I would like to build relationships with the people here. So we have an open book policy. You can come in, you can see the facility, you can see the houses. The houses are registered now. These clients are ready to go back. These two are at 51 Madison and the other two are at 34 Lorraine. They were the senior residents there. What that is the people that have been doing the work, going to meetings, dropping clean, have a little bit clean time. We gift them with an opportunity to be in charge. That way we don't have to have full-time staff. We have peer supporters that come in and work with them during the day. So in the evenings, they're home alone. We do not run background checks on clients. When they come to us, they let us know that they have a criminal background. This particular person did not let us know that he had a particular background check. That he had a background, that he was wanted. So we found out the hard way. So we don't just harbor people, but when people are coming to us, they already come with a background. Some of them have theft, some of them have all type of backgrounds, but when it comes to rehabilitation, we try not to hold them hostage to who they used to be. We're trying to help invest in who they're becoming. So my motto is if you can change your mind, you can change your life. You change your mind is the way you think. You change your life is the way you live. We are in the process of doing whatever we can to remain in Athens. If you guys do not want us in Athens, I need you guys to tell me that you don't want us here. Because I think that when you're telling us you don't want us here, you're telling us that we can't fulfill our mission and to help the people that are in need. We would love to help Athens Athens residents, because there is a need here. I did needs assessment prior to coming here. So if you guys can forgive me for the lack of getting the paperwork that you needed in a timely manner, I'm working on that now consistently and diligently and give these people an opportunity to change their lives. They're struggling in Columbus because that's not their home. Their home was found here and they want to go back home. And I'm rooting for them to go back home, but I can promise you this, that they will not go back home without proper staffing and proper guidance. I cannot promise you that somebody might not use, because I don't have the power to do that. Some people come to our housing just for housing, but there's some people, like these people, that really want to change their lives. And I think as a team, as a community, we can come together and we can help better them. They got jobs and they had to leave their jobs because we all felt like we wasn't wanted in Athens. I even was going to move down here because I love the peace. I want a cabin somewhere, a trailer somewhere, so I can sit out and drink coffee and have a peace of mind. And that's what they get at 34 Lorraine, and that's what they get at 51 Madison. As far as the driveway is concerned, they're already aware that when you back the van in, you back it in by the house and not to block the driveway. Sometimes you got to let the clients out of the car with their groceries before we can park. So they've been so doing it the right way that they ran into the house. So I have a bill I have to take care of. But I'm just saying I'm asking you all to give us the opportunity to help change the lives of these people and the community in Athens, because I believe that we're an asset and not a liability.
Thank you.
That's all I have.
Okay. Oh, we got another. Okay.
Excuse me, sir. I left this paper here.
Okay. So I'm Rob Delich, live at 124 Morris Avenue here in the city. I just want to state that I would encourage the commission and the city administration not to over-restrict the locations. We've heard some proposals to do things to greatly restrict, maybe to the point of not allowing them hardly anywhere in the city. That's not the right approach either. So I think a reasoned approach, which is what I'm seeing so far, I think makes sense, and I just want to encourage you along that path and not to overly restrict things. I will say, as an example, that the tobacco, vape, cannabis restrictions that were passed by City Council not too long ago now, less than a year, I think, some of the restrictions in there made it nearly impossible to put some of those facilities anywhere in Uptown, for example, because of churches were added into that by City Council. That was not in the proposal that was put forth by the Planning Commission. That church restriction made it so that there's churches in Uptown. So there's probably 6 facilities that are vape and tobacco retailers that would not be able to operate if they ever went out of business for a long enough time, so they're not grandfathered in anymore. So you could only have any tobacco and vape sellers in Uptown in only the very southern edge on Union Street or right near Union. The rest of Uptown will be excluded from those ever in the future. I think that went too far. That's not going to be a factor for a while until we have businesses start closing and being replaced and can't be replaced. But I'd encourage you to not take things too far and to make a reasonable approach here. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Okay. So this is a communication. What I would, and it sounds like, unless anybody here on the commission has anything else they would like to see David add to these revisions that he has provided, Mr. Riggs has provided, I would, I guess, like to ask that the commission vote to forward these changes to our law director for review before it comes back, get that review done and get her opinions and maybe adjustments if there are any necessary before we bring it forward as a case to vote on. And if the commission's comfortable with it, I'll move that we do that, that we seek the help of the law director to make sure we're on the right course.
So you're making the motion?
I'll make the motion, yeah.
Okay, then I will second that
Okay.
because I do have the authority to ask the law director anyway.
Okay,
for
perfect.
opinions
Okay,
on things.
okay. So all those in favor say aye?
Aye.
Aye, thank you. Okay. I think I'd like to get Ally back if she's around here now. Okay, so thank you everybody here for the discussion that we had with regard to the recovery and care facilities. So the next item on the agenda is reports. So Mr. Riggs, do you have anything that you would like to?
I don't believe I have anything for the commission here.
Thank you very much. Ms. Jennings?
I do not have any reports.
Okay, perfect. So now, are there any citizens here that have anything that they would like to speak about that was not covered on the agenda today? Seeing no hands go up, I would say then we'll move on to announcements and other business. And I believe that Ms. Nisley has other business that she'd like to talk about, or announcement anyway.
I do have a question for
A
us
question.
to consider. What regulations there might be in code as we look at data centers, which may be an issue for many communities in Ohio. And I know that there's state legislation looking at that, but I'd like us to I don't know what formal way we go about it. There's things to investigate in the city code and ways that might be incorporated, and I think we should be proactive about it.
Mayor?
I'm glad you brought that up, Member Nisley. This is a topic that has come up on numerous occasions, both with the U.S. Conference of Mayors as well as the National League of Cities. I think this is something that we should have a communication on. I'd be more than happy to bring some of the resources that the National League of Cities has addressed. There's some really fascinating, when I was at the U.S. Conference of Mayors meeting, there was a roundtable with about 50 mayors from across the nation, and it was a real fruitful conversation. As the technologies change with data centers, you know, with closed systems, meaning less water being utilized, energy still becomes an issue. I think now is the time for the city of Athens to start at least having a conversation under the Planning Commission about data centers. There's a lot of information out there. One of the best things that I learned is getting ahead of a data center coming in your community and having the ability to basically negotiate what is important to the community when it comes to a data center, or outright having moratoriums on them, or in some cases banning them. But I think it's timely.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
If I could add to what the mayor said last week, I was at an energy conference as a representative from NOPEC, and this was this and AI were the top two topics, and what it comes down to is balancing several things: the environment of the community, economic development, and the reality is that technology is changing daily. And it was a hot topic, and from that we also have some resources through not only NOPEC but also SOPEC that we can add to what the mayor shared today to have a community conversation about it. But they're not going away. It's just a matter of what is best for the community in terms of those three things I mentioned.
Thank you, Mr. Swank. Okay, any other announcements or other business? Seeing no hands, I'll move for adjournment. Thank you very much for attending.